Imagine standing at the gates of honor, the place where a nation says its final goodbye to one of its greatest heroes, and being told you don't belong. That's where our story begins. And I promise, by the end, you'll feel why this moment stopped an entire funeral in its tracks. Stay with me to the very end, and if you believe that respect, loyalty, and sacrifice still matter, then don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this need to be told, again and again. It was a gray morning, the kind where the clouds seemed heavy with grief. The funeral of General Marcus Harlow was not just a ceremony, it was history. He had led thousands of men and women, saved countless lives, and was a legend among the armed forces. Every rank, from fresh cadets to decorated officers, was in attendance. Flags lined the pathway, a military band stood ready, and guards in full-dress uniform flanked the gates to the cemetery where the general would be laid to rest. And then came Daniel Reed. A single father, a man whose eyes carried the weight of wars fought both overseas and at home. He wore a simple black suit, nothing flashy, nothing that spoke of his past except the quiet strength in his posture. His daughter, Emily, just 12 years old, held his hand. She clutched a single white rose, her small fingers trembling as they approached the entrance. "Stop," one of the guards said firmly, stepping in front of them. "This service is for family and invited personnel only." Daniel's voice was calm, almost too calm. "I served with him. I promised I'd be here." But the guards shook their heads. They saw only a man without the right badge, without the formal invitation. To them, he was just another face in the crowd. One of the guards even muttered under his breath, "Everyone claims they knew him." Emily's eyes welled up, her small voice breaking. "Daddy, but you said he saved your life." Daniel's jaw tightened. Memories flashed through his mind, sandstorms, explosions, and the night he had nearly died in the desert until General Harlow himself pulled him to safety. Daniel had carried that moment in his heart for years, a reminder that he owed his second chance at fatherhood to the man they were burying today. "I don't need an invitation," Daniel said quietly, but his words went unheard. The guards stood firm. Around them, decorated officers passed through with nods of respect, while Daniel and Emily were treated as outsiders. People whispered, casting curious glances, some even judgmental stares at the man who dared insist he belonged. Emily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Maybe we should go, Daddy." Daniel bent down, his voice soft. "Emily, some promises you don't walk away from. I gave him my word. And when a soldier gives his word, it means something." As tension thickened, the funeral procession began. The casket draped in the American flag was carried forward, followed by rows of generals, admirals, and government officials. The air was heavy with the sound of muffled drums and the weight of silence. Daniel stood still, a soldier without a uniform, barred from saying goodbye. And then it happened. A commanding voice cut through the air. "Halt!" The band stopped. The procession froze. Every head turned as a four-star general, General Lawson, stepped forward. His presence was undeniable, his eyes sharp as they scanned the scene. He had noticed the confrontation at the gate, and something in Daniel's face had struck him. "Bring him here," Lawson ordered, pointing directly at Daniel. The guards stiffened. "Sir, he." "Now," Lawson barked, and the guards moved aside instantly. Daniel, holding Emily's hand, walked forward slowly, unsure of what was about to happen. Whispers rippled through the crowd as high-ranking officers turned their heads. Why was this unknown man being singled out? General Lawson stood tall, waiting. When Daniel reached him, Lawson's voice softened. "Daniel Reed, I remember you." Daniel blinked, surprised. "Sir." Lawson nodded. "Marcus told me about you. The soldier he dragged out under fire. He said you were one of the bravest men he'd ever led. He called you his brother." Emily's eyes widened, and tears spilled down her cheeks as she clutched the rose tighter. Daniel's lips trembled. For years, he had carried that bond in silence, never seeking recognition. But to hear it spoken out loud, here, in front of everyone, it broke something inside him. General Lawson turned to the guards. "This man doesn't need an invitation. He is family." In fact, Lawson paused, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Marcus once told me that if the day came when he couldn't be here, he hoped Daniel Reed would stand for him. And today, Daniel, you will." Gasps spread through the assembly. Soldiers straightened their backs, civilians wiped their eyes. Daniel, overwhelmed, tried to protest. "Sir, But Lawson laid a firm hand on his shoulder. No, you belong here more than most. Come. With Emily by his side, Daniel was led to the front row, right beside the general's own family. Emily placed the white rose on the casket, her small hand lingering as she whispered, "Thank you for saving my daddy." Silence fell over the entire cemetery. Hardened soldiers wiped away tears. Even the guards who had refused Daniel earlier stood with lowered heads, ashamed of their mistake. As the rifles fired their salute and the bugle played taps, Daniel finally allowed himself to weep. Not just for the general, but for every memory, every battle, every sacrifice. Emily held his hand tightly, whispering, "Daddy, he's watching us. You kept your promise." When it was over, General Lawson addressed the crowd one final time. "Let this be a reminder. Honor isn't in the uniform, or the invitation, or the rank. It's in the bonds we make, the promises we keep, and the lives we touch." Today, Marcus Harlow isn't just remembered as a general, but as a man who saved lives, and as a man who believed that even an ordinary soldier could become family. And in that moment, Daniel Reed was no longer just a single dad, no longer just a veteran. He was living proof of brotherhood, of loyalty, of promises kept to the very end. If this story touched your heart, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that true honor can never be denied. And maybe, just maybe, we all need to hear that sometimes.